Jake Carter loved two things more than anything: free food and free travel. So when he won a random galactic cruise ticket in an Earth app contest he didn't even remember entering, he didn't ask questions. He packed his backpack, grabbed his old space sneakers, and jumped on the first shuttle to the Andromeda travel hub. He had no job to leave behind, no girlfriend to say goodbye to, and no real plan for the future. In his words, he was just vibing through the stars. After 3 fun days on the space cruise, eating floating fruit, riding zero-gravity slides, and singing karaoke with aliens who had 4 mouths, Jake found himself on a small stopover, planet called Nuvoro 6. It was a pretty moon, glowing with pink trees and tall crystal towers. The brochure said it was known for its spiritual energy and cultural festivals. Jake liked the sound of that. The cruise gave passengers 6 hours to explore Nuvoro 6. Jake, holding a paper map which he immediately folded wrong, wandered off the main trail. He followed a path of flower petals that sparkled as he walked. It led him toward a large crystal building that looked like a glowing palace. There were no signs, but Jake saw dozens of tall, shiny-skinned aliens in flowing silver robes entering through the tall doors. Music floated through the air, soft, dreamy, and a little strange. A huge golden banner above the gate had swirling alien letters he couldn't read. "Must be a party," Jake said, grinning. A fancy alien at the gate looked at him. It had 3 eyes, but it smiled with all of them. "You are the guest from Sector Terra?" it asked in a musical voice. Yeah," Jake said, not wanting to seem rude. He had no clue what Sector Terra meant, but it sounded like Earth. "Right?" The alien nodded and placed a glowing blue pin on Jake's shirt. "You may enter the sacred hall. Please stay within the light path and follow the rhythms," sweet Jake whispered, stepping in. Inside was a room larger than any stadium on Earth. The walls were made of soft glass that shimmered with colors as if the building was alive. Hundreds of alien guests stood in neat circles around a raised platform. Floating lights danced in the air. Musicians played instruments that looked like jellyfish attached to metal sticks. The air smelled like cinnamon and starlight. Jake's stomach rumbled. A server floated by with a tray of puffy, glowing treats. He took one, popped it in his mouth, and immediately smiled. God, it tasted like warm marshmallows and cool mint. He took 2 more. Then he heard a bell chime. Everyone clapped in a slow, careful rhythm. Jake joined in. A group of dancers floated across the stage, their bodies moving in waves. A spotlight circled the room and Jake, feeling playful, stepped into it and made a little spin. "Hey, why not?" He laughed when in space. The aliens gasped, and the music shifted to a deeper note. The dancers bowed toward him. Suddenly, all the lights turned soft blue. A glowing circle formed beneath his feet. The same alien from the gate floated forward and shouted something. A giant screen appeared overhead. On the left side, a picture of Princess Valeria of the Luxari Dominion, her skin glowing like pearl, her eyes shining like galaxies. On the right side, Jake Carter, still chewing marshmallow. "Fruit? Wait, what?" Jake said, mouth half full. Then the announcer declared in English, "The union is sealed. Witness the bond between Luxari and Tehran." The crowd burst into sparkles. Actual sparkles. They exploded like confetti around him. A group of royal guards stepped forward and bowed deeply to Jake. "Oh no," he whispered. "This isn't a party." 15 minutes later, Jake sat in a golden chair inside a floating space carriage. He was still chewing the last marshmallow fruit in shock. "Did I just marry someone?" A robotic translator next to him replied. "Affirmative. You have entered a royal life bond ceremony with Princess Valeria. Congratulations, but I didn't mean to," Jake cried. "I thought it was a festival," the bot replied calmly. "Your actions fulfilled all the sacred rites. You ate the unity food, you clapped to the sacred rhythm. Stepped into the bond circle during the soul alignment hour. These steps are legally binding." Jake pulled at his hair. "It's like just accidentally married an alien princess." The bot beeped. "Please remain seated. The Empress will greet you shortly." The floating carriage arrived at a palace that made Earth's White House look like a garden shed. Towers curved toward the stars. Gardens floated in the air. Waterfalls ran upside down. Two moons hung in the pink sky like glowing lanterns. Inside, Princess Valeria stood waiting. She was tall and elegant, wearing a robe made of living light. Her silver hair floated as if underwater. Her face was calm, but her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "You are ... Jake of Terra?" she asked in perfect English. "Yeah," Jake said, waving awkwardly. "I must ask," she said, stepping closer. "Did you know what you were doing at the ceremony?" "Absolutely not," Jake admitted. "I thought it was a parade or something. I'm really sorry." There was a long silence. Then, to Jake's surprise, Princess Valeria laughed. It was a soft, musical laugh that echoed through the hall. "Well," she said, "this is a most unusual situation. But it seems the stars have a strange sense of humor. Can we cancel it?" Jake asked. "I mean, no offense. You seem amazing, but I'm just a guy from Kansas." Valeria nodded. "Normally, breaking a royal bond would cause political chaos. But perhaps there is a way." Jake perked up. "Really?" "Yes," she said. "The Interstellar Federation has a clause for accidental unions. You must complete the ceremonial bonding tour. It lasts 1 moon cycle. After that, if both parties agree, the bond may be undone without war." "Okay. 1 moon cycle. Got it." Jake paused. "How long is that, in Earth days?" 33, Valeria said. Jake gulped. "Well, guess I'm married for a month," Valeria smiled. "And I suppose I have a human husband. This will be interesting." Yes. Jake was led to his royal guest suite with floating beds, talking mirrors, and a toilet that played music. He sighed. "Note to self," he muttered. "Next time, don't follow the shiny path." But deep down, he was curious. What would this bonding tour be like? Who really was Princess Valeria? And how had a guy with zero direction in life ended up in the center of the most important political marriage in the galaxy? He didn't know. Yet but one thing was clear. The vacation was over. The adventure had just begun. Jake Carter woke up in a soft round bed that floated slightly above the floor. The blankets glowed gently like moonlight, and the pillows whispered lullabies in a soft alien language. His eyes blinked open, and for a few seconds, he forgot everything. Then, he saw the golden wall with moving star patterns. "Oh no," he groaned, sitting up. It wasn't a dream. He was still in the royal palace, still on the alien moon Nuvorus 6, and he was still married accidentally. Princess Valeria of the Luxari Dominion. Jake rubbed his face. "I was just trying to find snacks." "I'm the royal husband." A small round robot floated into the room. "Good solar rise, Prince Jake. Your schedule is ready." "Please stop calling me that," Jake muttered. The robot ignored him and projected a list into the air. It showed: Royal breakfast with Princess Valeria. Legal explanation of marriage terms. First step of the ceremonial tour. Press photos with galactic media. Jake groaned again. "I just wanted a vacation." In the dining hall, Princess Valeria was already seated. She looked fresh, graceful, and calm, like she hadn't just married a total stranger from Earth. Her silver robe shimmered with blue light, damned, and a floating teacup followed her hand. "Good morning," she said, smiling politely. Jake sat across from her and nodded. "Morning. So, how are you handling all this?" She tilted her head. "I am trying to stay ... flexible." Jake looked at the food on the table. It was beautiful bright cubes, glowing flowers, steam rising from a floating bowl, but he didn't recognize any of it. Valeria noticed his expression and smiled. "Try this one. It tastes like earth fruit. I had the chef study your species." Jake picked up a small round puff and bit into it. His eyes widened. "Apple pie." "With a hint of moonberry," she said. They ate in silence for a few minutes, both feeling a little awkward. Then Jake said, "I'm really sorry, you know. I didn't mean to step into your wedding. I didn't even know it was a wedding." Valeria nodded. "I believe you. But the law is very old. Once the bond ceremony begins, it must be completed." Jake frowned, even if it was by mistake. Sighed, "Luxari law values symbols more than intention. If the stars guide your steps into the bond circle, the union is seen as destiny." Jake looked around. "Doesn't anyone ever trip and fall into a wedding?" She smiled. Once, a warrior from Ralkan 7 sneezed during the sacred moment. He had to marry a tree spirit for 6 years. Jake blinked. "Okay, so what now?" Valeria tapped her bracelet. A new hologram opened between them. It showed 2 glowing paths: stay married or request separation. "The Interstellar Federation has offered us a solution," she said. "We complete the ceremonial bonding tour 33, days of public appearances and rituals. We can then request annulment without insult." Jake leaned back. "So we pretend to be married, travel together, smile for the cameras. And then, if we still don't want this, we go our separate ways." "Correct." Jake scratched his head. "Guess that's fair." Valeria raised an eyebrow. "Of course there is pressure. My people will expect us to grow close." 2. Act like a real couple. Jake made a face. "Romantic pressure? Already?" Valeria laughed softly. "Not physical, just emotional. The people love stories. They want magic. They want us to dance in moonlight and whisper secrets, even if it's not real." Jake stared. "You're really okay with this?" She smiled. "I have lived my whole life in planned events and royal duties. At least this time, it's something unexpected." Jake nodded slowly. "All right, let's do the tour. But just so we're clear, after that, we both walk away. No drama." "Agreed," Valeria said. They shook hands, and just like that, they became space husband and wife on contract. Later that day, they met with the Luxari Bureau of Union Affairs. Jake had never seen more holograms, translators, or floating paper in his life. A glowing lawyer drone explained their situation. Their marriage had been broadcast to 1.4 billion Luxari citizens. The people were celebrating the union of worlds. Earth was trending across the galaxy, and breaking the bond early would cause panic, confusion, and loss of public trust. Jake leaned toward Valeria. "Your government sounds a lot like Earth's, complicated and dramatic," she whispered. "Now you understand why I never wanted to marry a noble." Outside, cameras from alien media hovered in the air. One had blinking eyeballs on top. Another looked like a jellyfish wearing a crown. "Smile," Valeria said. Placing her hand lightly on Jake's shoulder, he smiled stiffly as the flashes went off. One alien reporter asked, "Prince Jake, what was your first thought when you saw the princess?" Jake laughed nervously. I thought the room had great lighting." Valeria covered a small laugh with her fan. Another asked, "Will you build a home together on Nuvoro 6 or Terra?" Jake opened his mouth, then closed it. Valeria stepped in. "We will explore all options after the bonding tour. One must understand the other's world before choosing." Jake nodded. "Yeah, what she said." As they walked back inside, Jake sighed. "These people really think we're in love?" Valeria looked up at the stars. "They want to believe in something big, something magical. I used to think love was a tool for alliances. But maybe they're not wrong." Jake gave her a sideways glance. "You're more poetic than I expected." She looked at him with a small smile. "And you're more polite than I expected." That evening, Jake sat on his floating balcony. He looked out at the 2 moons above the palace. One was blue, the other was green with little rings. He sipped something called Star cider and thought about his life on Earth. It had been simple, boring even, but safe now. In just one day, he was a royal spouse, traveling the galaxy with a glowing alien princess, eating food he couldn't spell, and preparing for a month-long bonding adventure. Was he scared? Yes. But he was also curious. Valeria walked onto the balcony with a blanket over her shoulders. "May I sit with you?" Jake nodded. "Sure." They sat in silence for a while. Then Jake said, "So what's the first stop on this tour?" She smiled gently. "A planet called Serenos. I test couples by reading their energy connection." Through music, Jake blinked. "Wait, we have to… what?" "Sing." "No. Dance. In perfect rhythm," he groaned. "Oh, great." "I've got 2 left feet," she grinned. "Then I'll teach you." As the stars above them twinkled and 2 completely different souls sat side by side, neither one knew that this strange accidental marriage would soon become more real than either expected, because sometimes the best stories begin with a mistake, and sometimes the heart follows the stars even when the mind says no. Jake Carter had never danced in front of anyone except his bathroom mirror. Now he was on a floating stage, surrounded by glowing trees with hundreds of aliens watching him move like a confused robot. Music filled the air, slow, soft, and strange. It sounded like singing wind mixed with the beat of a giant heart, and right next to him stood Princess Valeria. Perfectly calm, perfectly graceful, and probably regretting everything. "This is going bad," Jake muttered. "You are stepping." "On the wrong beats?" Valeria whispered through her smile. "I don't even hear the beats." He whispered back. They spun badly. The audience tilted their heads in confusion. A floating jellyfish judge took notes. This was Serenos, the first planet on the bonding tour. It's known as the planet of emotion. It measured a couple's connection. Through music and movement, the stronger the bond, the smoother the dance. The smoother the dance, the better the energy match. And right now, Jake and Valeria were out of sync, way out of sync. "Focus on me," Valeria said softly. "Feel my steps. Match them." Jake tried. He really did. He watched her feet, mirrored her rhythm, and took a deep breath. Left, right, step, turn. Then something clicked. Suddenly the lights above the stage changed from red to soft blue. The music slowed. The floor glowed beneath them. Valeria's eyes widened slightly. "You're getting it?" Jake grinned. "I told you I had moves," she laughed quietly. "No, you didn't." But now they were moving together. It's not perfect. But together, a beat missed here. A slip there, but they didn't stop. Jake even dipped her once awkwardly, but with heart. When the music ended, the audience stood in silence for 3 seconds. Then, applause. Loud, bright, full of sparkles. The jellyfish judge floated forward and announced, "Bond energy rating, 72.3%, surprising, stable, slightly chaotic but warm." Valeria nodded. "We'll take it." Back at their guest suite in the Sky Garden, Jake collapsed onto a floating couch. "I survived alien dancing," he groaned. "Add that to my space resume." Valeria floated beside him, sipping bright green tea. "You improved." "I was terrified," Jake admitted, "but I had fun." She looked at him thoughtfully. "So did I." He turned to her. You sure we won't accidentally fall in love if we keep this up?" She raised a brow. "That would be most inconvenient." Jake laughed. "Yeah, super inconvenient." But they didn't look away from each other for a long moment. The next day, they flew to a giant space station orbiting a sun cluster. It was the halfway point of the Turan home to the Galactic Union Council. Here, they would give a speech. As newly united representatives of Terra and Luxari, Jake had never spoken in public. His palms got sweaty when ordering pizza. "I can't talk to leaders," told Valeria in panic. She smiled calmly. "Say what's in your heart. Be simple. Be you." "That is the problem," he said, still. When they stood together in front of the shimmering council made of insect kings, water queens, and AI minds, Jake found himself holding Valeria's hand tightly. She didn't let go, and when it was his turn to speak, he stepped forward and said, "Hi, I'm Jake. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was just a guy on vacation, but sometimes life grabs you and throws you into the deep end of the space pool." A few alien delegates chuckled. "I don't know about stars or empires or royal rules," he continued, "but I know this. I didn't plan to marry a princess, and she didn't plan to marry me. But here we are, and maybe learning about each other is what peace is all about." He looked at Valeria. Because if two strangers from different worlds can laugh, dance, and understand each other, maybe the galaxy can too. Silence then, applause. Even the Water Queen splashed in her tank with approval. Later, in a quiet lounge with glowing plants, Valeria turned to Jake. "You surprised me again." Jake shrugged. "I just told the truth. I liked it," she said. "You are honest and brave." Jake rubbed the back of his neck. "Thanks." There was a long pause. "Do you want to try something?" "Odd?" she asked. "Like what?" He said, "A real date. Not for the cameras, just for us." Jake blinked. "Mean like a pretend romantic dinner?" "No," she said. "Not pretend. A chance to talk? As ourselves." Jake smiled. "All right, let's do it." Their date happened on the next stop, Valenine, a planet with floating oceans and upside-down waterfalls. They visited a quiet moon lake, where glowing fish swam through the air. They sat on a blanket under a tree that sang softly in the breeze. Valeria brought fruit that tasted like fizzy lemonade. Jake brought Earth snack chips and soda, smuggled from the cruise ship. "You eat this often?" she asked, tasting a chip. "More than I should," Jake said. They laughed. Then they talked about real things. Valeria spoke about growing up under pressure, always expected to be perfect. She had been trained in 5 languages, 12 dances, 7 ways to smile properly. Jake talked about Earth, his part-time jobs, his small apartment, his pet cat named Taco. "I wanted something big," he said. "I just didn't expect." This big. They sat quietly for a while. Valeria looked at him. "You know, I'm not afraid of the bond anymore." Jake looked at her. "Me neither." For a moment, they just watched the flying fish dance in the air. Then Jake said, "If we weren't forced into this, do you think we would have still met someday?" Valeria smiled sadly. "Probably not. Would have been a shame." He said. She nodded. "Yes, a great shame." That night, while Jake slept, a quiet alarm beeped in the palace. A message came in from a secret Luxari channel. "Security risk detected. Warning, Shadow Dominion is moving to possible kidnapping attempt on the princess." Guards began moving quietly. Extra shields were raised. Jake didn't know it yet, but the tour was about to take a dangerous turn. The next morning, Jake woke up to shouting. He ran to the hallway. "What's going on?" A guard with sharp armor looked at him. "Get dressed. Stay close to the princess. We have a threat." Valeria appeared beside him, calm but alert. Shadow spies were spotted near the shuttle zone. "Shadow what?" Jake asked, eyes wide. "The Shadow Dominion," Valeria said. "An old enemy of Luxari. They don't want this bond to succeed. They fear peace." Jake swallowed. "So they're trying to stop us?" She nodded permanently. Suddenly a loud boom echoed through the palace. Lights flickered. Guard fell to the floor, stunned. Jake turned pale. "Oh no." Grabbed his hand. "Come with me. We need to run." They rushed down hidden halls, through tunnels of moving light, and behind illusion walls. Jake's heart pounded. "I thought this was a marriage tour, not an action movie." Valeria stayed focused. "We'll reach the emergency pod." Explosions echoed behind them. Shadowy figure chased through the hall tall, with glowing red eyes and a blade on. Each arm. Jake looked back. "I think that guy wants a divorce." Valeria pulled him through a gate, slammed her hand on a scanner, and they fell into a small escape ship that launched straight into the sky. As they shot into space, Valeria collapsed beside him, breathless. Jake looked at her. "So, your ex-boyfriend's worse than mine." She laughed, even in panic. "He's no ex, just a terrorist." Jake gave her a tired smile. "Well, our honeymoon just got exciting. Floating in space, with alarms beeping and danger still near." Jake turned to the princess. "Still think we should end this bond after the tour?" Valeria stared at him, then looked away. "I don't know anymore," she said softly. Neither did Jake. The escape pod flew fast through space, spinning past asteroid fields and glowing stars. Inside, Jake Carter held on tightly as the pod shook with every bump. Princess Valeria sat across from him, calm on the outside, but her hands were clenched. "Where are we going?" Jake asked, trying not to panic. Safe zone. A secret base hidden in the rings of planet Tover, Valeria answered. Only royal family members and top agents know it. Jake took a deep breath. Okay, that's good. Right? Yes, she said, but her eyes were watching the blinking red alerts on the wall. If we make it in time. Outside the window, 3 dark ships appeared. Long, sharp, and black like giant flying knives. Jake's heart dropped. Let me guess, Shadow Dominion. Valeria nodded. They found us. The pod's AI spoke. Enemy ships approaching. Shields at 53%. Evasive maneuvers activated. The pod twisted, dodged, and spun. Lasers shot past them like red comets. A blast hit the side. The lights flickered. Jake clutched his seat. I didn't sign up for this. I just wanted alien pizza. Valeria took the control panel. Flying now. Hold tight. Jake blinked. You can fly this thing. I trained in piloting when I was 12, she said calmly. With steady hands, she turned the pod sideways. Flying between 2 asteroids and through a narrow crack. In a space rock tunnel. The enemy ships followed, but one clipped the rock and exploded. Jake whooped. That's one down. Valeria didn't cheer. She focused, guiding the pod into the gas rings of planet Tover. Thick orange clouds swirled around them. Couldn't see clearly? Come on. Come on, she whispered. Then, safe zone reached. Cloaking activated. The pod vanished from enemy radar. The 2 remaining ships flew past, not seeing where they went. Jake collapsed into his seat. Remind me to never doubt you again. Valeria smiled weakly. Good idea. The pod landed. Gently on a hidden platform inside a spinning ring of rocks. They stepped out into a metallic hallway lit by soft blue lights. Guards with strange armor saluted Valeria. Princess 1 said, You are safe now. Jake waved. Hi, I'm just the Earth guy. The base was quiet and clean. It had rooms for rest, labs, and a control center. Jake and Valeria were given new clothes and a warm drink that tasted like spicy marshmallows. Oh, General named Vorn met with them. We believe there's a spy, he said. Someone leaked your travel path. Valeria narrowed her eyes. Someone close. Possibly from inside your own council, Vorn said. Jake frowned. Why? What do they want? Vorn looked serious. To stop peace. Alive. If this bond works, if your marriage becomes a real bridge between humans and Luxuria, it changes everything. Jake looked at Valeria. So we're a threat just by being together? Yes, she said quietly. Later that night, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked through the glowing halls until he found a small balcony.
Else.
Stars shone above, and a soft breeze blew through the force field. Valeria was already there, staring up. You couldn't sleep either? Jake asked. She shook her head. Too much on my mind. They stood side by side, not speaking for a while. Then Valeria said, Jake, we've been pretending. Jake looked at her. Pretending what? That this bond is only duty. That we're just finishing a tour. But I feel something real now, don't you? Jake was quiet, then he nodded. Yeah, I do. She looked at him. What do we do? Jake smiled. Maybe stop pretending. Valeria leaned closer. Even. If it's dangerous? Jake reached out and took her hand. Especially then. They stood there, hand in hand, watching the stars move slowly across the sky, but danger was still close. Inside the base, a small drone moved silently through the vents. It carried a tiny red eye and a message. Targets located. Prepare for strike. The Shadow Dominion wasn't finished. The next day, the alarms rang again. Jake and Valeria were rushed to the command center. General Vorn pointed at the screen. They're coming. 20 enemy ships. They found us somehow. Valeria's face went cold. There is a spy. We have to find them. Jake looked at the map. What do we do? Fight? Vorn shook his head. Not enough power. We evacuate. We split up. They can't catch you both. Jake stood tall. Then I'll be the bait. Valeria turned sharply. No, it's the only way, he said. I'm not from here. They want you more. I'll draw them off. She grabbed his arm. You could be killed. Jake smiled gently. You're worth it. She stared at him, heart pounding. Jake. He looked her in the eyes. You saved me. Let me return the favor. They came up with a plan. Jake would take a decoy ship with fake royal signals. It would jump into hyperspace, drawing the enemy away. Valeria would stay in the core base, protected, and wait for help from the Galactic Union. Before they parted, Valeria gave Jake a silver pendant. It glowed softly. For protection, she said. He slipped it on. Thanks, princess. She looked down. Never wanted to be married this way. But now, I don't want to lose you. Jake took her hand. We're going to make it. Promise. Then they hugged. A real, tight, scared, honest hug. And then they let go. Jake entered the decoy ship. The engines fired up. The countdown began. Valeria watched from the control room. Silent. 3, 2, 1. The ship launched, streaking into space. Enemy ships followed in seconds. Valeria whispered, "Be safe." But as Jake flew the decoy craft, he realized something strange. One of the enemy ships didn't follow him. It turned back toward the base. Wait, Jake said. Something's wrong. Then a hidden message came through his communicator. A voice he recognized. You should have never come to this galaxy, human. The princess belongs to us. Jake froze. The spy was on the base, and Valeria was in danger. He turned the ship around, back at the base. Valeria walked into the main lab. A familiar face waited for her, her cousin, Lord Tyrion, a member of the Royal Council. She smiled weakly. I'm glad you're here. Jake is. But then she saw the weapon in his hand. I'm sorry, cousin, Tyrion said coldly. But peace is weakness. Your marriage is a joke. The Luxari should lead, not mix with apes. Valeria's eyes narrowed. You betrayed us. I saved our future, he said. Now you'll disappear. They'll blame the Shadow Dominion. He raised his weapon. But before he could fire, boom, Jake crashed through the wall in a shuttle, shouting, Hey, cousin jerk. Tyrion turned. You. Jake leaped out and tackled him.
The weapon clattered.
Away. They fought Tyrion fast, trained. Jake, wild, sloppy, determined. Valeria grabbed the fallen weapon. Jake, duck! Jake dropped. Valeria fired. Tyrion flew back. Stunned. Guards rushed in. Jake stood, bruised but smiling. Miss me. Valeria ran to him. You came back? Of course, he said. I told you I'm in this all the way. They looked at each other and kissed, for the first time. Real, honest, warm, no cameras, no duty, just them. Later, the Galactic Union arrived. Tyrion was taken away. The Shadow Dominion retreated. Peace returned. But something had changed. Jake and Valeria were no longer pretending. They stood on a balcony again, hand in hand. The tour's almost over, Jake said. We can annul the marriage now, Valeria looked at him. Do you want that? He looked into her eyes. No, do you? She smiled. No. Jake grinned. So, what do we do now? Valeria laughed softly. Maybe plan a real wedding. Jake nodded. With cake this time. 1 month had passed since the fight with Tyrion and the final escape from the Shadow Dominion. Jake Carter stood on a green hill under twin suns, wearing a new suit made of soft Luxari silk. Around him, strange trees swayed in the breeze there, leaves glowing blue and pink. A calm wind carried music in the air, soft, warm, and full of joy. He wasn't nervous, wasn't confused. He was sure because this time the wedding was real, and he wanted it. Across the hill, a long, shining platform floated above the grass. It was shaped like a star and decorated with light crystals and flying flowers. Thousands of guests were arriving, humans, Luxari, and many others from around the galaxy. Even the Galactic Union Council had come. The Water Queen was in her tank, again, splashing with joy. The jellyfish judge from Serenos danced above the ground. Jake even saw one of the space llamas from Valentine in a tuxedo, And in the center of it all, the bride, Princess Valeria. Her dress sparkled like starlight. It changed colors with her heartbeat soft gold, then gentle violet. Her hair was tied with silver leaves. Her eyes glowed with emotion. She walked slowly toward Jake. A step, making the light platform shimmer. Jake smiled. She smiled back. The new high speaker of the Luxari stepped forward. He raised his arms. Today is a bond not made by politics. Not by accident, but by choice. The guests grew quiet. Jake Carter of Earth, Valeria of Luxari. You have walked together through danger, through misunderstanding, and through the madness of fate. Now do you choose to stay bonded not for peace, not for power, but for each other? Jake took a deep breath and said, Yes, I do. Valeria held his hands and said, Yes, I do. The speaker smiled. Then let the stars witness this union.
Ow!
Bright lights shot into the sky. Music rose. Fireworks in the shape of hearts and stars filled the air. The galaxy celebrated, and Jake and Valeria kissed. This time, it's not for show. This time, it was love. The party afterward was wild. There was earth music, luxury dances, alien food, and floating. Bubbles that told jokes when they popped. Jake danced with a three-eyed ambassador from planet Groll. Valeria arm-wrestled a robot. Everyone laughed, ate, and cheered. Even Jake's parents joined through a holocall. Son, his dad said, we didn't expect you to marry a glowing space princess, but we're proud. Jake chuckled. Thanks, Dad. His mom wiped her eyes. Just don't forget to invite us for grandkids. Jake almost choked on his juice. Valeria, hearing that, gave a small, amused smile. Later, they sat together on a balcony overlooking the party. Jake leaned back. Well, I guess this is the happily ever after part. Valeria looked at the stars. Not exactly. Jake frowned. Wait, what? What now? She turned to him. The galaxy is still watching. Peace is still fragile. There's work to do. Together, Jake nodded. You mean like ruling? Not ruling, she said. Leading. You'll be Earth's new ambassador? I'll guide the Luxari. We'll help keep the bond strong. Jake smiled slowly. We'll make sure humans and aliens stay connected. Exactly, she said. He looked at her. You really trust me with all this? I do, she said softly, and not just because of duty, but because of who you are. Jake turned toward her and said, You make me want to be someone better. She laughed gently. You already are. Days later, the two traveled together to the Galactic Union homeworld's Forest Prime, the heart of the galaxy. They stood before the Grand Council again. This time, not as strangers, not as test subjects, but as true partners. Jake gave a speech, no more confident. Peace, he said, isn't a deal. It's a daily choice, a bond we build together. It's just like a marriage. The council nodded, many smiling, some were even teary. Then Valeria stepped forward. Our bond began by mistake, she said, but now it's our greatest strength. The entire hall stood in applause, and from that moment on, the Earth-Luxari Bond Alliance became a model for other planets. Months passed. Jake and Valeria traveled across the galaxy. They visited Earth. Valeria saw rain for the first time, and danced in it. They visited Luxury's deep core temples. Jake wore the ceremonial robes, even though they itched. They built schools where alien children and human children learned together. They opened cultural halls where people could share food, music, and stories. And slowly, the galaxy began to change. Less war, more friendships, fewer borders, more understanding, all because a guy from Earth went to the wrong wedding one night. On a quiet planet covered in glowing flowers, Jake and Valeria lay on a blanket under the stars. Jake pointed up. Do you ever think about how it all started? Valeria smiled. You mean when you walked into my wedding by mistake? Jake laughed. That moment. I thought you were a spy, she said. I thought I was about to be arrested, he said. They both laughed. Valeria looked at him. Jake. Yeah. She turned slightly toward him. Do you regret anything? That I didn't kiss you sooner. She smiled and kissed him gently. Then no regrets, she said. The next day, a message came from the edge of the galaxy. New species had made contact. Strange, quiet, powerful, curious about peace. Jake and Valeria looked at each other. Should we meet them? Jake asked. She stood tall. It's what we do now. They entered their ship together, not just a princess and a human. Not just lovers. Not just leaders. Partners. And as the ship flew into the stars once again, Jake whispered, let's see where this bond takes us next. Valeria smiled. Together.